ZEE's D&I Digest. All things diversity, equity and inclusion in one place.
Hello, lovely people. How are you doing? You've stepped foot into another riveting edition of ZEE's DEI Digest with me, Ahalya, your host. Delighted to be here as always because discussions about diversity, inclusivity and equity, along with deep dives into inspiring journeys of stellar women, I mean, what's not to love? Today is no different because we've got with us Tripta Singh, Territory Head, APAC ZEE International. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ahalya. It's a pleasure being here.
Awesome. So are you ready to chat about all things Tripta and all things DE&I?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, for that, I guess we first need to understand how you chose to go down this path of business. So tell us a bit about your journey. When you decided to pursue a career in business, what were your initial apprehensions? Did you have any?
So actually, quite ironically, I think more than business, it was getting into media. And when I did get into media, which was way back, and I guess I'm going to give my age away, it was 1995 when I got into television for the first time. And if you recall, actually, it was ZEE that started the pay TV business, right, in 1992. So it was shortly after that. And I joined Sony. And this was when Sony was launching. So, the entire industry was relatively very new. So really, I think I jumped into it. Maybe that's part of my risk-taking ability without really knowing what to expect. And I must say that it paid off really well because I grew with the industry and I kind of rode that wave. Did I have any apprehensions? I think I've grown up in an environment. I come from an army background. So I grew up in an environment where, we were pretty much taught that equality works. And I grew up with a household of women. And I think, it was made very clear to us right from the beginning that, you need to stand on your own 2 feet. You need to be independent. You need to take risks. So I think I was lucky I grew up in such an environment and it never really, crossed my mind that this was going to be something that I didn't know anything of. And I just dove straight into it.
That's awesome. And, I have to say that entire aspect of risk-taking ability, that isn't something that's very easy to tap into. And that leads me to my next question, which is, it's undeniable that there are quite a few negative stereotypes, right, surrounding women in client-facing jobs. How do you suggest that women entering the industry or women who are already in the industry actually navigate those stereotypes?
So I think, like you said, there are a lot of stereotypes, right? And I think as women, we've had to deal with them. We continue to deal with them, right? I started my career in advertising sales. Again, I think I was lucky. My sales head was a woman. She was a maverick. She was way ahead of the curve. And she was a great role model for me and a great source of inspiration, right? Because I learned from her. And I think even in sales, I think you need to keep gender aside, right? You either have it in you or you don't. For me, I think you need to be on top of your game. Today, when I look at my team, I think in sales and in any part of your business, you need to know your product, right? You need to know your customer. You need to know what makes them tick. If you do all that and you do all the right things, it doesn't matter what gender you come from or, where you're from. Those are principles that will stay with you. As women, we need to know our strengths. You need to build on them.
Right.
And I think some of our biggest strengths are that we have a very collaborative style. We are, relatively more empathetic. I think we are very deep-rooted in our values. We are inclusive, right? And I think we should play on those strengths. And for me, the most important thing is self-belief. I think that's the starting point. It shouldn't matter whether you're a woman or not. You can do it. We need to believe in ourselves. And also, I think you need to advocate for yourself.
Yep, absolutely. And, with that kind of attitude, it's not surprising that you've had such an exceptional career so far. What are some insights that you've learned through your career that have helped you as a woman in business?
So, when I look back at the last 27 years or so of my media career, I think I was very fortunate to work with some of the, the large powerhouses in media. I started with Sony, spent a decent amount of time there, moved to Star, and of course ZEE, which has been home now for the last so many years. Yeah. And, don't get me wrong. I think I've been, again, relatively lucky. I've had more highs than lows if I look back. Don't make no mistakes that it has been a roller coaster of a ride. But if you ask me, I'll do it all over again. And I think some things that have really helped me, and I've also learned to imbibe, it's very different when you start your career in your 20s, and now I'm in my late 40s. You also grow and evolve as a person, right? But I think some key values or some key things that have stayed with me is, I think, really, like I said, you need to believe in yourself. You need to be true to yourself, right? And don't be afraid to pick up skills. I think learning is so important. I think the day you think that you know it all, somewhere you're going to stop learning, and I think your growth trajectory is going to stop. So don't shy about picking up new skill sets. At the same time, I think stay focused, be perseverant. And I think, again, as women, we're very quick in judging ourselves. We're very quick in being guilty. We have so many roles we juggle. I've seen that in my own journey from, of course, becoming a mother and trying to, have the perfect home life, being a perfect mother, trying to be the perfect manager at work. And let me tell you the secret, and I think most women would know this, maybe they don't acknowledge it, that there is no harm in letting go of that perfection. I think there's no need for us to be guilty. So I think these are things that you learn along the way. And another important thing is that I think there is really no harm in speaking about your ambitions. It's okay to be ambitious. You know what I mean? And it's okay to state that. And if you don't state it, nobody else is going to guess that for you. So I think having that confidence and knowing where you want to go and speaking up about it is very important.
Wonderful point there that you just brought up, Tripta, about taking your inherent strengths and actually viewing them as strengths. It's up to us in the first place to do that, because if we don't, then how is anyone else going to?
Absolutely.
And we always highlight this point. The organization's role, right, is invaluable in promoting an ethos of diversity, inclusion, and equity. What are some of the noticeable changes that you've witnessed since the beginning of your career at ZEE to now in terms of its DEI initiatives, and have they also impacted employee well-being and growth in your opinion?
So, again, I'll go back to when I started at ZEE, since you're asking me to give you a little overview on the changes I've seen. And when I started way back in 2003, believe it or not, my immediate manager was a woman. Our HR head that time was a woman, a very strong lady. And so was the ZEE TV head. So, again, I was very lucky to come into an environment where diversity and equity and inclusivity already existed. You know what I mean? Right. They were already there. I think the only difference, and I see that, even as a career and even in the industry, is that way back then, I don't think topics like diversity actually were ever discussed. They were never brought out in the open. And I think today, the great part is to see that we as an organization, we as a company, we no longer, shy of talking about these topics. Some may even be a slightly uncomfortable or difficult topics to deal with, right? So I think that's been absolutely fantastic to see this journey, internally at ZEE. Because I think awareness to me is so important, right? A lot of people may not even be aware if they are being insensitive in their conversation, or which may not, I don't think, have any malice intent, but I think it's just awareness. So I think one of the great things has been that awareness is key, and I think that's really been the starting step. And I'm so glad that we as an organization today are so open to feedback, so open to learning. Also, I think to instill this confidence, right, that in all of us, that if there is harmful behavior on account of gender or diversity, I think all of us should know and should be confident that it will not be tolerated at the work. And I think I've been subject to it. I mean, I remember a comment being made to me about, oh, you know what, you're a great candidate, but you're a woman. And, this was years ago, right? But I think now I don't even think that would be accepted. I don't even think anybody would say it, right? And to be fair, I think the person who even spoke to me, I don't think ever meant badly by it, But I think it's just that people are much more aware. And I think the organization is doing a fantastic job. And the fact that you and I today are sitting, we're having this conversation, and this conversation is going to be heard by all our colleagues, I think it's fantastic. We've come a long way.
Yes, absolutely. We have. So, Tripta, speaking of, is there a particular incident that you can think of that supports this journey?
I think I'm testimony to the fact in ZEE, I've been here 18 years and I've grown the ranks. I've, been very lucky. I've been exposed to every different type of vertical, from advertising sales to distribution sales, programming, marketing, research, and I've learned along the way. And trust me that this would definitely have not been made possible had it not been for mentors and sponsors sponsors who have internally championed my causes and believed in me. And most of these have been male advocates. I mean, it hasn't been an easy path. I can definitely vouch for that. And there have been moments where, you do kind of feel that, oh, could it have been different had I been, of a different gender, right? But again, I think key is self-confidence, key is to be positive. And that's what pushed me, to the fact that I should speak up for myself. And it is very, very critical. And I would say this for all my colleagues, that it is so critical to find that support system, those sponsors who will champion your cause. So, reach out for them, build that relationship internally, which will then push your cause ahead.
And Tripta, interestingly, you brought up this entire idea of awareness, right? And it is really, really important in facilitating diversity, equity, and inclusion in a workplace. What do you think can people do, say team members do in their daily lives to become more inclusive?
So, before I get into that, I must tell you, and I'm extremely happy and very proud, but, as part of ZEE's program, for Q2, we were given the Diversity Achievers Award, and it was such a great feeling. I must dwell a little upon my team. Today, I lead a team of about 25, 26 people. We are located in 5 countries. The great part is it's a 50-50% representation of both men and women. I have 6 nationalities working for me, from Filipinos, Indonesians, Thai, Singaporean, Malaysian, Indian. You know what I mean? We can't get more diverse. It's not just that we are divided by boundary or by geography or language, right? But so many cultural nuances when we work together. And I think over the years, the entire team has come together and we kind of pause, we hear each other, which is so critical, right? You have to respect each other for your differences. I mean, I always go back to this, thought I read about, that there is so much beauty in diversity, right? And for me, I think it's important that all of us as team members should listen, embrace, learn to respect each other for our differences. And at the same time, stand up and believe in what you think is right.
Right. So if I got that right, your primary advice for our listeners today is pause and listen and respect and celebrate differences.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Tripta, for those wonderful insights into your career, into your opinions and your explorations into diversity, inclusion and equity. It has been absolutely fantastic chatting with you. But this is not the end of the conversation. We always end with a little bit of extra fun. So stick around, yeah?
Thank you so much. And I'm not so sure, but I think I'm looking forward to that.
You're listening to Zee's D&I Digest, a download of all things diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Well, it's fun and games as always in the last part of these DEI Digest. Now, we know Tripta the professional, but what about Tripta Singh? I've actually got a fun round of word association for you, Tripta. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
So just to set the context, word association is a very simple game. I will give you one word and you have to give us the first word you think about when you hear the word.
All right.
Okay, so let's go. Your first word is childhood.
Amazing.
Okay, rain.
Mesmerizing.
All right, Z.
Oh my God. Roller coaster.
Okay, love.
My child.
Career.
Absolutely fantastic.
Okay, money.
Important.
Fear.
It's something to overcome.
Laughter.
Very important.
What about millionaire?
Well, I guess it depends, but I already am one. I'm just kidding.
Okay, social media.
Absolutely useless.
Oh. I love it when we get the provocative side of our guests. Okay. Honesty.
Very important.
Music.
One of my loves.
Netflix and chill.
Say Z5.
Z5. Okay, all right. And the last one. Women.
Played a very important role in my life.
Well, what a wonderful note to end this edition of the DEI Digest. Thank you so much, Tripta, for joining us, giving us your wonderful insights, and it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you.
Thank you so much, Ahalya, and it's been a pleasure being here, and I'm hoping that, whoever listens to this sees value in it.
Absolutely. And before we sign off, any last words for our listeners?
I read something recently, and I'd love to share it with you all. So here goes. Diversity is like being invited to the party. party. Equality is being represented at the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. And belonging, which I think is a new aspect we should introduce, is wanting to stay for the second dance.
Wonderful. That really touched my heart, and I'm sure it's been the same for our listeners. Thanks so much, Tripta. And that is what you call going out with a bang.
Thank you so much, Ahalya.
This is Zee's D&I Digest.
Well, that was an absolute blast. So glad that I get to come on air and host these wonderful shows for you all. Now remember, we've got a whole lot of conversations lined up for you, so make sure to stay tuned to Zee's DEI Digest always. Now before I make my way to you lovely folks with another enthralling conversation, if you'd like to contribute to the DE&I movement here at ZEE, just write to dei@zee.com and make your voice heard. For now, this is me, Ahalya, signing off. Stay safe and stay inclusive.
You were listening to Zee's D&I Digest. All things D&I in one place.